Welcome back to our channel where we share updates and untold stories about Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. Today we bring you some significant news: Queen Camilla in tears after explosive clash with Princess Anne over royal titles. According to an insider source, Queen Camilla's tearful departure from Buckingham Palace after a heated argument with Princess Anne has turned into one of the most dramatic crises in recent royal history. The palace is beautiful but dark, and the weight of centuries-old traditions often clashes with the raw emotions of family life. The event, which transpired in private on a chilly October evening, has exposed significant issues within the House of Windsor, potentially leading to the institution's disintegration. Eyewitnesses said the scenario was like a whirlwind of pent-up anger, with Camilla storming out in obvious pain and saying, "I'm done with this family, West Side," which sounded like thunder through the halls. This affair isn't simply a private fight. It's a huge event that has both royal watchers and the general public wondering what will happen to the crown in the future. As further information comes to light from those who work in the palace, the narrative unfolds against a background of golden thrones and whispered secrets. It is a story of devotion and treachery, tradition and change. The British monarchy has been through a lot of ups and downs over the last 10 years, from the death of Queen Elizabeth II to the continuing problems of public scrutiny and internal change. But this fight is a turning point, a spectacular encounter that shows how the old guard and contemporary forces are at odds with one another. People who know the palace well and want to be anonymous to safeguard their jobs say that a private meeting that was supposed to be quiet turned into an emotional storm. It was like the air was charged like the calm before a royal storm. One top advisor said mixing facts with drama to show how intense it was. The origins of this conflict go back to the monarchy's changes under King Charles III. Camilla, who was formerly a contentious figure because of her connection with Charles when he was married to Princess Diana, has worked hard to improve her image. At 76, she is a beacon of strength, quietly fighting for issues like literacy and raising awareness about domestic abuse. Her current status is a stark contrast to her background. However, her journey toward acceptance has been challenging, and the latest event demonstrates that there are still individuals within the organization who do not wish to accept her. Princess Anne, 73, the Princess Royal and a model of responsibility, has long been the monarchy's most loyal enforcer. She has attended more events than any other royal and embodies the unwavering ideas of service and hierarchy. Therefore, the conflict between them is not merely personal. It reflects a smaller version of the larger issues within the organization. The discussion, which took place in a private room at Buckingham Palace, was supposedly about giving one of Camilla's grandchildren a ceremonial title. Charles had quietly agreed to this apparently harmless idea. To Anne, however, it was a serious danger to royal procedure. Several reports say that the conversation started off well, with tea served on excellent china and courteous conversations. But as the talk went on, things became worse. Anne, who is renowned for being straightforward, allegedly made her reservations quite clear. Blood earns rank. Not association, not sentiment, not the whims of modern inclusion. Her statement, spoken in a measured tone that sources say was ice-cold and unyielding, hit to the heart of Camilla's attempts to bring her family into the royal fold. Taken aback, Camilla responded passionately, drawing on her own experiences of exclusion as an example. "The Queen herself came to love me, and love should guide us now," she said, her voice rising with intensity. According to aides who put together the story from second-hand sources, this conversation turned the room into a theater of struggle. The drama became worse when the servants suddenly left, leaving the two ladies alone in a room full of history, with paintings of former kings and queens looking down on them as if they were seeing a family tragedy. One aide later said that the atmosphere was like a pressure cooker with every word threatening to shatter the facade. Camilla's eventual exit, which was marked by tears and a firm statement, was not only an emotional release, but also a public sign of her breaking point, a moment that has led to endless speculation in royal circles. This event was not an isolated incident. To really understand how important it is, you need to look at the history of the Windsor family, where there have been long-running arguments over succession titles and inclusion. Queen Elizabeth II ruled for 70 years and was adept at keeping people together via quiet diplomacy. But when she died in 2022, there was a gap that showed cracks that had been there all along. Dr. Amanda Foreman, a royal historian, says that the monarchy has always been a mix of theater and tradition, but under Charles, it's under pressure to adapt to a more egalitarian society. In interviews, Foreman has talked about how Camilla's role as queen consort shows a shift toward inclusivity, while Anne's resistance shows how conservative things were in the past. It's like watching a classic drama unfold with characters torn between duty and desire, she says, adding a theatrical touch to her interpretation. Once the word got out, there were rapid and varied effects. At 75, King Charles had to be the mediator, which was not an effortless job. His personal health problems, especially his continued cancer treatment, made the issue even more urgent. Reports indicate he tried to ease the strain by holding private talks, but Anne was still determined. She is said to have warned him, "This isn't about feelings, it's about protecting the legacy." Her remarks carried the weight of her decades of devotion. Charles, always the diplomat, attempted to keep his allegiance straight, but those close to him say he was visibly rattled. His anger showed in missed appointments and quiet talks with trusted friends. "I can't lose either of them." "Not now," he said to an assistant, a remark that shows how much he was hurting within. The turmoil also affected Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, whose participation made the issue a bigger family story. Tom, who is 49 years old, is a well-known cuisine critic and novelist who is far away from royal responsibilities. However, his exclusion from a major charity event, ostensibly at Anne's request, ignited a spark that expanded the story. People who saw the Windsor Gate incident said it was like something out of a historical drama. Tom arrived in a well-fitted suit, looking calm and confident, and Anne received him at the door. There were no words spoken, just a long, steady gaze that said a lot. One staff member said, "It was a masterclass in silent confrontation, like a standoff in a royal thriller." Such behavior was a huge affront to Camilla, not only to her son, but also to her own role in the family. She saw it as a calculated embarrassment, a way to show how far royal approval might go. But Anne's supporters say it's an essential stance for etiquette. A source close to Anne said, "We serve, we don't socialize," which showed how dedicated she was to the institution's framework. Hugo Vickers, a royal commentator, said in a recent BBC interview that Anne is the monarchy's backbone, making sure that emotion doesn't override tradition. The incident had effects throughout the palace, with aides scrambling to deal with the fallout and keep the press from getting any information. As the days went by, Camilla's emotional reaction became the main focus of the tale. She struggled with emotions of betrayal and loneliness in her private quarters, which were full of royal things. Sources say she was distant, and her typical calmness was breaking down. "Does she think I'll ever be like them?" she inquired through tears, which made the queen consort seem more real and added emotional depth to the story. This scenario, which is private, shows how hard it is to be in public positions, making the piece more like a character-driven drama. Camilla's path to this breaking point is full of emotional layers that have been sculpted by years of being in the public eye and being alone. Camilla Shand was born in 1947 and grew up in a milieu quite different from the royal life. But when she became Charles's girlfriend during his troubled marriage to Princess Diana, she became famous. The severe criticism from the media in the 1990s, which called her a homewrecker and subjected her to savage tabloid assaults, left permanent wounds. Sources close to Diana say that even when she married Charles in 2005, she still felt like she didn't truly belong. Queen Elizabeth II's early doubts exacerbated this feeling. A longtime friend said, "She always felt like an outsider looking in, as if the palace walls were both a shield and a barrier." This emotional turmoil makes her recent fight more dramatic, turning it from a simple disagreement into a cathartic release of pent-up grievances. The altercation with Anne that autumn night marked the culmination of Camilla's long-standing anger. The conference began in a fancy room with stern-faced relatives' portraits on the walls, as if the past was condemning. Camilla walked in calmly, but inside she was really nervous. She had pushed for a ceremonial title for her grandson, viewing it as a tiny step toward bringing the family together. Charles agreed with her that it would help them live together more smoothly. But Anne was quick to oppose and would not back down. "Blood earns rank," Anne said firmly, and her words sliced through Camilla's carefully kept serenity like a dagger. Camilla perceived this rejection not only as a breach of protocol, but also as a personal assault that evoked painful memories. People who know her say that her response was a mix of emotions. Initially, she was frustrated that she was being ignored, and then she was wounded, which made her cry.
She felt like she was back in the early days fighting for acceptance. One aide said, stressing how Anne's position was similar to how the royal family has always been cautious. Camilla's voice shook as she said, "The Queen hugged me and love should matter more than strict lines." This discussion, cobbled together from many stories, shows how tense the situation was. Camilla's anger wasn't just a reaction. It was based on her past of being emotionally isolated. She had worked for years to create bridges, helping Charles through his problems and doing charity work to earn people's favor, only to feel like they were being taken away from her again. As the argument became worse, Camilla's face got pale and her fists clenched in her lap. The sight was a tangible sign of the tempest within her. When she eventually left, she said, "I'm done with this family," which wasn't just an outburst, but a scream from a woman who was tired of battling for her position. This emotional intensity didn't go away after the event. It became worse, making Camilla's private quarters a place to think and cry. She stayed out of the public eye for days, and her normal habits were thrown off by waves of anger that made her rethink her place in the monarchy. Sources provide a clear image of these times. Camilla sat alone by a window that looked out over the royal grounds, tears flowing down her cheeks as memories came back to her. She remembered how lonely she felt in the 1990s when people were so mean to her that she felt like an outcast. Even after receiving acceptance, she continued to experience subtle exclusions. She allegedly told a close advisor, "It's like no matter what I do, I'm always on the outside," her voice full of despair and defiance. This self-reflection adds a dramatic touch to the plot by showing Camilla not as a remote leader, but as a lady who is going through a lot of emotional turmoil. The Windsor Gate incident made Camilla even more distraught and turned her sadness into a bigger public event. When Anne told Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, that he couldn't go to a charity function, Camilla was quite embarrassed. Tom, a 49-year-old food critic who has never liked being in the spotlight, came to the event with a feeling of calm excitement, but Anne was waiting for him at the entrance. Eyewitnesses said that the situation was heartbreaking for Camilla, who found out about it soon after. She saw it as an attack on her family and everything she's worked for, a source said. In the seclusion of her chambers, Camilla's anger came out as a flood of tears and pacing, with her mind racing with ideas of how unfair things were. "Why do my kids have to deal with this?" she asked herself, echoing the bigger theme of her emotional problems. This occurrence wasn't a one-time thing. It made her long-standing anxiety of never really fitting in even worse. This fear has been with her since her marriage. Experts on the royal family, including Dr. Kate Williams, say that Camilla's feelings of rejection come from years of being the other woman And things like this bring those wounds back to life, making her upset feel new and overwhelming. As the drama went on, Camilla's encounters with King Charles showed how emotionally weak she was. Charles, always the kind spouse, tried to comfort her, but his own conflicting loyalties just made her feel more alone. Camilla was very honest when she talked to Charles about how hurt she was. "I thought we were past this, but it feels like I'm still fighting for a seat at the table." These words from the couple's friends show how tense their relationship is. Charles is the bridge between worlds, and Camilla is the one who has to deal with the emotional cost. This dynamic adds a level of closeness to the story by illustrating how her anger affects not just her, but also the whole family. The Christmas dilemma in Sandringham was another place where Camilla had to deal with her emotions. She wanted Tom to be included because she wanted to show her family's importance, but the conflicts that followed made her feel more alone than ever. During the occasion, it was clear that Camilla was distraught. She forced a smile to hide her inner agony, and her eyes darted around the room as if she were looking for approval. A source said that Anne felt like an imposter in her house since William's chilly manner and distant nods made her agony worse. This scene, which is full of dramatic irony, shows how Camilla is still dealing with rejection. Her heart aches as she watches the celebrations without any affection. During these events, Camilla's wrath turned into a deep reevaluation of her life. When she was alone, she thought about how she had helped the monarchy, like how she had supported Charles in his darkest days and served the people even though she had been attacked personally. She wondered if it had all been for nothing. "I've given so much only to be pushed aside." She thought her thoughts a mix of sadness and strength. This mental monologue, which comes from what her friends have said about her, adds emotional depth and makes her seem like a tragic person in a contemporary royal play. In the end, Camilla's anger has sparked reform in the monarchy, making people think about problems of inclusivity and empathy. Anne and William stick to tradition, but Camilla's emotional journey shows how strict hierarchies hurt people. As the palace deals with this problem, her narrative reminds us that real hearts ache behind the crowns. At the same time, Prince William's part in the events made things even more complicated. The Prince of Wales, who is 41 years old, has made himself a contemporary leader by concentrating on things like mental health and protecting the environment. But he was quite clear about his support for Anne's position, even if it was subtle. People who were there say that during a formal dinner, when Tom was there, William stayed away on purpose, and his actions spoke more than words. An insider at the palace said, "He believes in earned duty, not entitlement," which shows how strategic William is. This quiet agreement with Anne formed a gap between generations, and Camilla felt more and more left out. One person said, "It's like a chess game where every move is planned, and the stakes are the future of the crown." The tensions peaked at the Christmas festivities in Sandringham, which have traditionally been a sign of royal togetherness. But this year it played out like a stressful scene in a family drama. The guest list, which Camilla insisted on having Tom on, caused many arguments behind the scenes. Anne strongly disagreed, and William agreed with her. Charles begged for peace. William is alleged to have declared, "This is a royal gathering, not a family reunion," and his comments had an air of power. There was an undertone of discomfort during the occasion, with people forcing smiles, having uncomfortable discussions, and not being as welcoming as normal. An insider said it was a performance where everyone knew their lines, but the script was falling apart. When Tom got to Sandringham, it was a pivotal moment. His small act of resistance spread through the crowd. Despite the warning, he confidently entered, defying the established rules. Anne turned away. William gave a little nod, and Camilla looked proud. It was a statement heard loud and clear. One assistant said, adding to the tension in the setting. The public reacted quickly, with photographs getting out to the press and a lot of arguing on social media. The news cycle was dominated by headlines such as "Queen Camilla Family Woman" or "Rule Breaker," which put the palace's PR staff under intense pressure. This outcry showed how weak the monarchy is in the internet age. Dr. Kate Williams, a royal expert, said, "The Windsors are no longer shielded from public opinion. Every family drama becomes a global spectacle." YouGov polls showed that people were split, with some supporting Camilla's push for inclusiveness and others supporting Anne's defense of tradition. The media frenzy made things more dramatic by converting private complaints into a public story that questioned the institution's usefulness. The unspoken struggle between William and Camilla became worse as the narrative went on. Initially, William and Camilla had a good relationship, but over time, minor conflicts arose between them. A photographer took a picture of William's stare at a joint engagement and called it distant and calculating, which led to further conjecture. Communication between their teams fell down behind the scenes, and cooperative activities became less common. "He's drawing the map for the future and she's not on it," one advisor said, stressing the strategic undercurrents. The stress built up over time for Camilla, and she needed some time to think. The press noticed her absence when she canceled events and passed on her responsibilities. "I won't be humiliated again," she assured a close friend. Her remarks echoed the drama of her history. Charles, on the other hand, had his problems to deal with, such as his health and the family splits, which were very hard for him. This fight isn't simply a footnote in royal history. It's a sign that things are about to change. The monarchy's future is unclear because Anne is holding strong, William is pushing his vision, and Camilla is doubting her position. Experts like Foreman say that, without reconciliation, the crown risks alienating a new generation. As the palace deals with these tensions, the story reminds us that even in the most royal of settings, human emotions and institutional demands create a drama that captivates the world. The issue is still there. Can the Windsors get over their differences, or will their reconciliation be the act that breaks the throne for good? Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for the time being.